So I went around the country recruiting artists, writers, temple painters, street painters, pulling them to a studio in Bangalore, which had one defining mission. Can we transform the perception of India from being an outsourcer to becoming a source? In this world of animation, comics, everything, it had been known as a great animation outsourcing hub. But for us, we were not trying to promote coloring in Tinkerbell. We were trying to give a chance for these artists to actually take risk. And we found that one of the challenges by being such a prolific outsourcing firm that India was, and doing so much third-party work out there, was that many of the young talents we saw would get into that ecosystem very quickly and find themselves in a services business. And it's very hard when you're in a services business to live and die on the risk of creativity. So we saw a generation growing up as technicians and not artists. And what we wanted to promote was, how do you come to a place where we will never do outsourcing work? We are going to live and die by what we create. And can we live in that world of risk? Which is what Pixar, Marvel, some of the greatest companies like Lucasfilm that I admired really tried to do in their life. And that was how Graphic India was born.
Well, this is actually a panel I've had for, I think, close to over a decade now. I've done the panel, and it's really about how do we spark an interest in connecting the worlds of pop fandom here and the fandom of India. And a lot of my work in my life has been about connecting those two worlds and really unlocking a new golden age of creativity from India with young artists, writers, creators, filmmakers in the worlds of animation, gaming, comics, all of that, and then bring it out to the world and connect with creators here. So this is the perfect place. There's still nothing like San Diego Comic-Con in the world. I think it's my 25th year being here as a person, so it is the place where dreams come true. Of course, I update with new stuff that we're doing, but the message has been the same, right? But I think the reception has been quite different. So we have seen, a lot of different shift in terms of how people look at the content and how people are excited. Over the last 10 years, there's been a huge wave, particularly given, I think, the fact that streamers have democratized content from around the world. So everybody is being exposed to some of the best shows from around the world, regardless of language. And so I think that's opened people up to kind of wanting to experience content from other cultures in a way they never had before. So that's exciting. And a lot of our mission has been building creators' relationships from East and West. So Grant Morrison has worked with us, other great creators from the West have worked with us, worked with Indian artists and writers as well. And so it's always been about pulling those people together. Stan Lee, obviously before he passed, was we worked and launched his biggest Indian superhero, Chakra the Invincible, where again, East and West together and bringing creativity together to create something new. Oh, I think that my first memories are probably as like a 6 or 7 year old, buying Stan Lee comics probably at a 7-Eleven and going home and being taken to that place of wonder and simultaneously also having relatives bring these Indian comic books that would talk about the great myths of the East and do them in comic book format. And I remember all of that synthesizing into my life at an early age, and I was hooked. I read comics my whole life. I've been I went to school as an artist. Obviously from 21 started my company, which was bringing Marvel and DC in the early days out to India because of my love for comics, and then obviously building my own stories and creativity post that. Yeah, but this has been to me it's the greatest medium in the world. You can create a movie with an unlimited budget, and the only thing you need is a pencil, a paper, and your imagination.
And obviously now we've seen so many variations of Spider-Man, but this was 20 years ago when we started this journey. It was probably the first of its kind to really take such a beloved Western icon and what we call transcreate him for a new market like this. So, we gave him a little bit of Indian style.
First part of my life, I brought Marvel and DC Comics out to South Asia, translate a lot of their comics, and we always called it a process of transcreation instead of translation, because what you were really doing was finding the essence of how to say that slang, how to say that intent. But a literal translation often never works, right? So you have to capture the flavor. And I think that's become more and more an art form. And it's an art form that, as I've moved into my animation work in India, some of our big shows are translated into numerous languages across the country. So that's an important part of understanding it. And now, through our platform Toon Sutra, we're bringing hundreds of thousands of comics from around the world into Indian mass market for, in Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, all these local languages. So again, it's about capturing the flavor of these great global creators and making sure that authenticity is there when we bring it to those audiences in these languages. So it is a big challenge, and I think if you get the translation wrong and try to do a didactic or a literal translation, you will lose your audience very quickly, yeah.
And then, I had the good fortune of working, if anyone has ever seen RRR, Obviously, S.S. Rajamouli is a genius filmmaker, and prior to RRR, he developed 2 films called Bahubali.
I've had the great honor of having him as a mentor and someone that I've worked with for a number of years. And I worked with him on his first 2 films, Bahubali, where I handled a lot of the transmedia activities that they were building, and we launched a 74-episode animated series, a big podcast, a number of books, graphic novels, a whole bunch of stuff to create, and a big game to like create the first sort of franchise from India that really thought in that 360-degree way that we often see people do here. But what I learned then, and what I think the world has come to see, not only from the Bahubali films, which had a huge impact on India, but from RRR, which had a huge impact on the world. So I think what people got to see is the genius of that creator. I mean, he's a legendary, once-in-a-generation creator who is so uniquely Indian in his storytelling that, that people have never seen anything quite like it. And I think his mastery of the craft as well is what makes it very unique. And I've talked to some of the best filmmakers in the world, and obviously people. And it's funny. I was talking to one who's a big Hollywood filmmaker the other day, and he was saying, he was telling me his favorite movie of all time, and I said, "What is it?" And he said, not knowing I know Rajamouli, he said RRR. So I think it had a profound impact on everybody, but certainly also in India, both his films have, Bahubali franchise, I should say, and RRR have shaped the media ecosystem in a way that was never there before.